And action. Andy had a question about runner's high. We're going to try to talk about it with science. But it's tough because a runner's high is a sense of euphoria that you get when you run. And if you don't run, or if you have fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, depression, anxiety, if you have any of that stuff, then you're suffering already. So to ask somebody that's suffering to go outside and run, knowing that your knees will probably hurt, you're probably short of breath, you're going to be winded, you might get a little stitch in the side, to ask somebody to put on more suffering is very tough. Unless they've experienced it before, and then they know, okay, I know what to do, I just have to begin it, and hopefully I'll get past the break-in period. So that's what runner's high is about. It's about getting back into a groove, having economy of movement, and then having the hormonal response to the activity. So that's what it boils down to, is when you run, when you exercise of any sort, but specifically when you run, after a certain amount of time as far as maximizing on your training experience for a couple of weeks to a couple of months, and continued exertion, you will feel some euphoria. When you measure runner's high in mice, when scientists did that in 2015, they measured anxiolysis, which is negating anxiety. They measured analgesia, they measured sedation. They measured these three parameters to figure out if running would really cause some kind of euphoria. Because you can't really ask a mouse about euphoria, so they use the other parameters. I think they're valid. So you can easily translate that to people who suffer from those diseases I talked about, because when they get to an exercise routine, when they work on flexibility and stretching, when they get out and walk, there is a sense of calm because the body likes that movement. Movement and or translation from going here to going there, getting out of the house, gives you a sense of satisfaction, satiety. We always talk about that because when the brain figures and feels satiety, it's happy. When the brain is happy, suffering goes down a notch. So that's where the running is important. As far as whether you get that on a treadmill or not, though, I don't think you will, because the brain will always think, wait a minute, I'm still in this room. I haven't moved. My feet are moving, but I haven't moved. So will I get that from feeling my heart racing fast and my feet going? Well, the mouse study says that they will, because in the mouse study, you just have to let them run on a wheel. So the finding when the scientists evaluated the mice after running was that they had an increase in endorphin and enkephalin. And watch my video if you want to know what endorphin and enkephalin is about. And they also had an increase in anandamide. Anandamide, if you've watched my medical marijuana video, is an endogenous cannabinoid. That means an endocannabinoid, something that we produce inside of us, every cell, that stimulates receptors and binds to receptors that also bind cannabinoid or medical marijuana. So most of us know that when somebody smokes or gets high, the THC component in the cannabis leaf, the marijuana leaf, that gives you a feeling of satiety, euphoria. And if it happens to be more anti-inflammatory, higher in CBD, you'll have a feeling of decreased inflammation. But both of those feelings are when you smoke pot or marijuana, cannabis. You can get that when you secrete anandamide and other endocannabinoids, but the scientists in 2015 found that mice, when they ran, released that too. So the argument was maybe that runner's high is not necessarily from endorphin and enkephalin, maybe it's from endogenous cannabinoids. I mean, both these things are great. The endorphin and enkephalins are opioid receptor stimulators. Anandamide is an endocannabinoid receptor stimulator. So both of them work to give you a feel-good feeling. Whether one gets into the brain and is higher responsible for it versus another, who cares? I mean, the bottom line is that there are benefits to running. There are benefits to activity, but specifically running has been studied, and so why not do it? So this is how we do it. The specifics back in 2003, where when they studied college-level runners, was that after 50 minutes, the college-level runners gave a subjective evaluation. They said at that point they felt euphoric. So listen, that's just a general small pilot study. It's hard to say 50 minutes is your goal because you got to get past the aches and pains of initiating a new activity. Then you got to get trained and develop the economy of running, because you can't just go with bad form and expect you're not going to get hurt. You have to have that to get to the 50 minutes that you need. So between starting and getting to 50 minutes, if you blow out your knee and you're carrying 50 pounds and running weird, you're going to expend a lot of energy. You'll actually start suffering. You won't make it to 50 minutes. So that's why you have to have somebody evaluate, get a running coach, get the right kind of shoes, and then get to that point. Hopefully, after you're a good runner, you will get to the point where it's 50 minutes and beautiful. You'll feel that euphoria. Just so happens that 50 minutes might be about the time that a 5K is finished. And what do? We have 5Ks everywhere. So obviously, you're going to have to go pretty fast to do a 5K. But what I'm getting at is that we have a lot of opportunity, if you're wanting to just run, to participate with large groups of really cool people in a 5K for like 30 bucks, local to you. In Chicago, we can check out CARA's website, Chicago Area Runners Association. They have a lot of lists for the competitions that are coming up. They're relatively cheap, cheaper than diving into a marathon, but training for a marathon is tough. Training for a 5K, if you turn in your chip middle of the race, you can actually walk home and not be worried about it. I did 2 marathons, and I hit the wall both times at 13 miles, and I had to walk 13 miles back. But like, that was a great experience, truthfully. It was painful, and that's where I began my hiking career. Because the last one I did, 2010, I walked 13 miles, and I said, you know, if I can do 13 miles, I can do Yosemite. And I did Yosemite. So this is where I think that if we get my non-runners to experience that high, then you might love what you do and might be sold with adding some kind of activity into your lifestyle approach. So everybody needs an anti-inflammatory lifestyle plan, and not everybody is going to be a runner. Some people will be hikers, some people will be yoga practitioners, some people will just go CrossFit, some people like just doing resistance exercises. But whatever it is, if you can get out there, get the coaching, get broken in, get the coaching to improve, and then just hold that and sustain it for a while, you'll probably feel the benefits. And then you'll stick with it, and it'll be more than evident that you'll have to maintain a good nutrition practice to support that practice. And then it'll be more than evident that you'll have to have a relaxation practice that you get on days when you're not exercising. So see how all this stuff is all linked together, all to give you that anti-inflammatory lifestyle approach. And that's why I think it's easy for everybody. But since we have science, and since Andy had a question, I thought I'd answer it that way. I don't run anymore. I found, again, since 2010, I can do this, get that same high with hiking. And yeah, I probably can dive into a 5K if I wanted to. I mean, I did 2 marathons without training just because I thought, since I was a yoga instructor, I could get through the 26 miles, and I will never do that again. But I still practice yoga. I now take people hiking with me. I still continue with exercise and resistance because I know the value, and it has helped me break my fibromyalgia and put it into remission. So I think it's valuable for me. I think it's valuable for my patients. Andy, hopefully this helps you with figuring out how you're feeling and what your next summit's going to be.